Hello, 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 hello. Shabbat Shalom, solidarity, comrades, Baruch Hashem, to all my siblings under God. How are you today? We are starting off this pre-Shabbat stream with the Falcon General. Say hi. You're breaking up a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, so today is our usual Friday stream. Um, and we're gonna try to have guests on. As for people who want to join, I have pinned the StreamYard link in the chat. And for those who are watching later, you can tune into these streams every Friday unless I specify otherwise. And it's fun time, and maybe you'll even get a chance to come on. And wait, someone just came in and popped out. That was weird.
Huh.
But
As well,
yeah.
I was
So
gonna.
I won't be bringing on. If you do want to join, I won't be bringing you on right away. We're going to start off the discussion, and then start bringing people in. A few at a time. I don't want too many people on at once. I'm neurodivergent and sensory overload. But yeah, so this is something I want to start, and also for everyone watching later, thank you so much for subscribing, watching my videos. It means so much. We reached that 1K mark. It may last. I may go down. I do lose subscribers every once in a while, but I also get a big push in them too. But regardless, I appreciate all of you in solidarity forever. Don't give up the ship. So today, the topic is going to be, well, at least the intro, what we're going to be talking about. And I'm glad you're here, Falcone, because this is a topic you might very much appreciate. And I would like to hear your perspective as well. And the topics today are going to be patriotism, internationalism, and love.
Yeah.
And no, it's not that kind of love, you dirty, dirty leftists, you
Oh my god.
degenerates. Darn you.
People are
No, we're
so
talking
weird
about
and shit.
we're talking about an abstraction that has come about through human social interaction over the course of tens of thousands of years. And it's this thing that we call love. Oh, hey, comrade Amy. Good to see you. I'm so happy you found a temple out there. That's amazing. Amy's a great comrade. And we go way back.
Uh-huh. All right, let me check something. I'm gonna check something.
Okay,
Good.
so go ahead and check something. But what I was going to start out with is, I have called myself a patriotic socialist in the past and a patriot. And I want to sort of
Mhm.
clarify that a bit. Um, when I say patriot, it's more along the lines of like uh, the PSFM and like people like Navajo Nation and stuff. My idea of
Mhm.
patriotism is a deep love for the people who have grown up under the same, regional political system and regional oppression, right? And it's not a love for that country, not at all. It's a deep love for
Mhm.
the people of that country. And I have a deep love for even people who might even have reactionary views of all stripes and everything. But if they're working class or lumpen, I have a deep desire to see them all freed from the shackles of the American state. But I think what people need to realize is that patriotism isn't some sort of exceptionalism for your homeland. That's not it at all. American exceptionalism is bad, and we can see American exceptionalism arise in, several well-intentioned ideas like socialism with American characteristics. Like I understand, yeah, and I understand where these people are coming from. And the first thing I say to them, well, do you want to save America or do you want to save the American people? And they'll reply to you, well, I want to do both. And I was like, well, why would you want to save something that has put not just America, but the entire world
In
under its
jeopardy.
under its domineering thumb? I don't understand. I mean, you may be attached to that name and you may be attached to that identity that you have, but it's a fabrication that, well, all identities are fabrications, but this one is very inorganic and it is based out of a very, very dubious past, which the Falcon General talks about the founding fathers, one of her videos, very well. And you should go check that out.
Uh-huh.
They tore down the Queen Victoria statue in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Based. Yes, and I'm gonna get to that.
And
So
also,
and
the other
so
thing,
I believe.
uh,
Oh, I just want to finish the intro, and I believe,
mhm.
hey, Tonio, and I believe that patriotism, from my perspective, from a revolutionary perspective, from a perspective of liberation, is specifically should be tied to a community that you are a part of. And so say that you're Irish and live in America. You can have, you know, a proud love for that culture. You can have a proud love for that, but you can't have a proud love for being an American, because there's nothing about America that is based in something good, or it's very unique, but it's not good. It's not a healthy relationship to have for revolutionaries to have. When you try to, use the same patriotism tactics that countries in the global south do, like in Latin America specifically, I see this parallel. And I say to myself, um, these aren't the same things. And when we claim to be against capitalism, we have to understand that capitalist's highest stage is imperialism, and that imperialism has a very nasty uh, has a very nasty appendage called colonialism, and these things are inseparable from each other. Okay, so when
Mhm.
this was a colonial state, and anyone who says it wasn't, well, they're wrong. And how is it still a colonial state? Well, if you don't, just read some Frantz Fanon. If you if you really want to understand, uh, a Marxist definition of like what modern colonialism is and what a settler exactly is. And I'm not saying that
Mhm.
there is no revolutionary potential here. There very much is. But the potential that's highest right now is the potential for national liberation. So your patriotism for your community or your identity takes a back seat to the primary contradictions. And so when we see oppressed nations call for national liberation or national cultural autonomy, that is our priority, because these people, that is directly tied to colonialism and imperialism. And this is the fourth world in the United States. And when it's directly tied to these things and they're calling for their liberation, we don't get to dictate to them how they do that. And if they want to create a new Africa, or they want to create large swaths of indigenous land that are completely separate from whatever we do here, then we have to listen. The Jews, like us, have more of an idea of creating autonomous federations within a state, not having one our own. We have a very deep aversion to that. Um,
Yeah.
and and I just want to tell you, if you truly are a patriot for the people who live under this American system and Canadian system, they're one and the same, then you would listen to the cry of the most oppressed and what they're calling for, and you would stand in solidarity and not dictate to them what they want to do. And so this brings me to my point, that I believe patriotism is a deep, deep love. It's a very emotional. It's not a material response like nationalism, or at least nationalism of the nations that are oppressed. That's a material response, not an emotional one. Patriotism is an emotional response. And I'm not saying that's worthless, but it's tied to love. And I think that love is a quality that every revolutionary should have. And that brings me to my next point. This idea of love is, what is internationalism, and how is that compatible with patriotism or even national liberation and nationalism of the oppressed? Well, let me tell you that internationalism is not the same type of love, not the same familiar love, but it is the it is a not a lesser type of love for the rest of the masses of the world, hearing their cries for liberation. And that internationalism is also tied to combating imperialism and colonialism, the uh, highest stages of capitalism. And so, on
Mm-hmm.
on an international scale, we have to combat the primary contradiction too. Well, how do we do that from here at home? We support the people who want to undermine American imperialism. And if that means undermining the idea of America to save the rest of the world, then we have to do it. Because what we have to understand is that while national liberation is essential, it must come before any sort of idea of socialist revolution. What I also want to say is that is um oh fuck, I lost my train of thought because there's tools going on in the background. I'm sorry. Is that, oh yeah, patriotism, as it's emotional and not material, like internationalism or national liberation. It has to take a back burner to your duty as an internationalist, as an anti-imperialist, as someone who wants to free the fourth world in this country, the black nation, the indigenous people, the Latino indigenous people, the colonized people of this country. So what you have to understand about all these things is that while you can be a patriotic socialist, much like the Navajo Nation patriotic socialists, or the Bundists are patriotic socialists, it's a patriotism for one's community and not for the state or the country. And I think people need to really understand that, and how patriotism is, can be healthy or reactionary, and how also um, nationalism can be healthy or reactionary. And there can also be, internationalism to the expense of your own people, which for, the fourth world is not something that they can do. Like Palestinians have to focus on their shit right now. Indigenous people have to focus on their shit. Sorry, they don't have time to look at us. They have to, they're freeing themselves, and we should stand by them. That's sort of my opening statements and what I wanted to say. You can go ahead and talk now about Falcone. Okay.
Here and there.
Are
Can
you
you hear
there?
me?
Yeah.
I think my internet's fucking up on me, not lying. But I was gonna say is this, like, the other thing is this, like, the people who say this, that they want to, like, save America, like, are just, like, dumb entirely, and basically just, like, want to save, like, the whole aesthetic, like, this fascist state that is not even worth any saving at all. And, like, the other thing, make, like, they try to, like, make, like repackage Americanism and shit like that, and basically try to make, like, socialism like an American thing to do or some shit like that
Well,
by
it's called.
repackaging, like,
It's something that's innate in a lot in the cultural hegemony of America. This idea of American exceptionalism. We all grow up thinking America is the best, freest, richest country in the world. They uphold democracy. That's what they teach us in school, right? And I think even when you unlearn that stuff as an American, especially one that isn't, especially a white person, I think that you just take that in. It's harder to shake that off. It really is for a lot of these people, and I consider a lot of these people uh, comrades. It's just I just feel like that I feel like that they're almost there, but they're just like, for me, they're almost there, but they're just a little bit stuck in that Western chauvinism, which is a problem with the Western left, which has plagued the Western left ever since we, have started our thing. And they're looking back at the early days of the CPUSA and saying how they used to be super patriotic and shit, and and especially during like the United Front era, it was like they would say things like socialism is Americanism and stuff. These really old 20 early to mid 20th century slogans that really don't make sense anymore, especially in this day and age when the class consciousness of the fourth world and colonized people and people of color is so high. They don't buy into that anymore. It's just not something
Mhm.
that is useful.
The other thing as well is like I have like a problem with some of these people who push like socialism American characteristics because literally they saw the same old like just like indoctrinated like American mindset and shit like that. And like the other thing they forget is that socialism is anti-American and should be anti-American. Like socialism shouldn't be like, oh, let's save like America. No, let's like fucking destroy America and like make a fucking new one or a
So
new
I want to
country.
harken back. I want to harken back to about 100 or so years ago to the very first socialist state, the USSR. They weren't trying to
Mhm.
save Russia, right? They
Yeah.
understood the Russian Empire was an antique of a lost age, and it was time to build something new. And while the national question wasn't completely correct, they did give autonomy, cultural autonomy, to a lot of people. And they had this idea, and they didn't say this is the Russian uh, socialist empire and stretch it across all the former empire. They made it the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic with a Russian one, with a Kazakh one, with a Belarusian one, and even within Russia there were autonomous oblasts and autonomous republics. Autonomous republics that still exist today, like the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. And
Hmm.
so and so they didn't they knew that they weren't trying to save a dying empire, just like how
Yeah.
we're trying to save a dying empire. They took what was good about Russian culture and kept it. They did. And then they left behind the reactionary times of old, peace, land, and bread. This was a new age. And I think, look at what they did. They kept all these unique and amazing cultures within this, greater that were within the Russian Empire, and they gave them freedom as well. And I think that there was limitations to that. I think it should have had a little bit more regional autonomy as a whole, but I think the idea was firm, especially early on. And I think that you need to consider ideas like that. Well, look what China did. They didn't just replace the Qing dynasty; they replaced the Republic of China just as quickly because they recognized this isn't worth saving. It's broken. You know what? They still uphold Sun Yat-sen, the founder, as the father of the republic. His portrait is across from Mao Zedong's. There are good people in history that take up things and have lived under systems and done things like the old Communist Party saying that socialism is Americanism. Like, this was wrong, but these were mostly great people, mostly great comrades. And what you need to understand is that we've learned we're not back then anymore. This is a new age. And we can learn from the mistakes of the 20th century, and how we see that saying socialism is Americanism was an abject failure, especially when during the McCarthy era we were completely ostracized on the fringes of society. People thought of us as the opposite of American. And when we try to present ourselves as American, they see it as disingenuous, especially when we're saying things like saying things like, uh, we're going to change the system completely. They're not hearing you saying you want to save America. They're hearing you saying you want to tear up their lives. The only thing we're doing that's different is saying that we have an alternative to this
Yeah.
shit. We're not trying to save a dying empire. That's the difference.
Yeah.
We're trying to build something new because this thing is a decrepit husk and it's dying. Everyone knows we're no longer in a unipolar world. This is a multipolar world with countries like China and Russia taking up new poles and challenging American hegemony. America doesn't have the influence that it once had and is dying to hold on to it. China's already surpassed it in economic growth. They're losing their power in the world. And this is the dying breaths of an empire. We're not trying to save it. Why would we? When we have these when we have the black nation, indigenous people, Latino indigenous people saying we have an alternative that we want to use to liberate our people. Why don't we listen to them? And maybe not all of them agree on everything, but this is a discussion amongst them, not amongst Whitey, not amongst us. All right.
Oh.
And I just want to say, like, God bless everyone who's fighting for justice. We just have to be careful about the way we speak and the way we present our ideas. And I know what you're trying to do, but it's not the right idea. And I just, extend my hand and say, think about it. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you have anything to say?
I agree. Basically, like, I agree with your point. Like, basically, they weren't like Mao and Lenin were not like, hey, let's like save this like dying empire or any of that shit. No, they were like, they actually want to build. They took like the things they like and actually built something new and built an actual alternative. Like, that's the thing that people need to realize. Like, we shouldn't be here going advocating for saving this dying fucking empire that deserves no redemption at all. This country is a fascist country, and also everyone should be supporting this. Death to America! Death to America!
Well,
The Ayatollah.
I would argue against this fascism, against its fascism. I think it should. I think it's a very naked, aggressive, and most. It's the biggest terrorist organization on the planet, the U.S. military, and
I would say the United States is worse than Nazi Germany and
yeah.
also Israel, in my
Well, I'm
opinion.
just saying that I don't think fascism is the ultimate evil. I just think it's a manifestation of it, and I think the American Empire is the highest level of evil. I don't think it's necessarily fascist, though. I think it certainly has qualities of fascism of the past, and it certainly has inspired fascism. I think it's like some sort of like fucking reactionary empire, neo empire. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think that um, I think that once all the guise of liberal democracy is dropped, and like there's like nationwide curfews not because of a pandemic, but just because of safety reasons. Like when they start doing that, that's my fear of what happened on January 6th. Like I don't agree with those people, but I don't think they should have
Yeah.
been punished for expressing their frustrations. And I mean, if they killed someone, maybe there's or hurt people, but they're innocent people. There's an argument for that, but I'm just talking about as a whole. And whenever they came out for laws against it, it was laws against extremists, not against right wing terrorists or white nationalists. Against
No.
against extremists, which means communists too, and people who disapprove of the United States government. Yes, U.S. imperialism are contributors to genocide. The U.S. state is founded on genocide, and then it still contributes to genocide today. And I
As well
believe.
as I was also gonna mention this, like when it came to me saying like "Death to America," like literally even like the Ayatollah in Iran is like "Death to America," just going like chant "Death to America," "Death to America," and
Yeah,
I agree.
do you think the Ayatollah wants to see the death of all American people? No, he's talking about the institution of America, the idea
Yeah,
of America, what it has meant to the people of that are victims of imperialism for so long. for so long. This is what it means to them. Get to America, because if America dies, then we are saved. That's what it means to them.
As well as like the other thing is this, like, to me, America deserves no redemption at all. It's like not redeemable at this point. Even
Well,
trying to go with,
I
with
mean,
like,
just the old system.
yeah.
If you want to create a section that is allotted to us, white people in America that don't want to go back to Europe or anything like that, and you want to call it America, fine. But it's not going to take on the fucking qualities of the thing that came before. And I'll certainly guarantee you that the parts of America that are going to be redistributed to the indigenous to
Fuck.
colonized people isn't going to be called America. I guarantee you they're going to come up with all
Oh
kinds of
wait,
different
my
names.
Wi-Fi
It
is
isn't going to
fucking
be
up
what
on
you
me.
like. It isn't going to be what you like, but maybe your little allotted space, because quite frankly, we are uninvited guests. And the fact that, black people and indigenous people just don't rise up now and slaughter us, is they have the right to do that. I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying they would. These people are much more intelligent and understand their place, but I'm just saying they would have all the right in the world, because we're uninvited guests. We impeded ourselves here. I know we didn't, like I didn't, but to tell you is if we were given the option to go and like given a home and a job and one of like our ancestral homelands, like for me that would be Ireland. Well, hell, I'd love that. Please and thank you. And I understand that not all people will do that, but whenever you stay under this system, it's going to be led by the people it belongs to. Hmm? Not by you, not by your group of communists, not by your Vanguard Party. I'm sorry to say, but America is a very unique condition that requires national cultural autonomy. It requires national liberation, whether that means these people separating or being autonomous within the same place. Um, that really isn't relevant. Oh, I forgot. I have a banner.
So literally my Wi-Fi fucked up on me and it started making some weird beeping noises on your end and shit like that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what happened.
Wow.
And I forgot like some of the things you said because let's see. You cut out there because of my Wi-Fi being so fucked up, so
Oh, well, at least they heard me.
all I heard
Specky,
was
is there such
like,
thing as a white American who doesn't have Irish ancestry? Yes, there are. There are many. There are
yeah.
many of them.
You could
Um, yeah. Look at Comrade Net.
yeah. As also so you can count like also the German population as well.
Yeah, actually, in my part of Texas, in the it was like in the 1860s. There was a large movement of Germans to Texas and Czechs. Texas, because there was promised land. This was 20 or so years after the Spanish American War and when Texas had been in. So they're like, look at all this land we have. Come on. And
Yeah.
so, like I live near a place called Fredericksburg. I grew up on a place called Comfort. And and Bernie and and Pflugerville. All kinds of fucking weird places. But Fredericksburg is that one of these places that they have this population that's a Creole that speak a mix between English, Spanish, and German. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. I was gonna say this. The other thing is this, like, there's like a lot of German people like in like literally I think the Great Plains regions. The
Yeah.
Great Plains region as well.
Well, yeah, and
And
also in the north of the Midwest, like Minnesota and Wisconsin, and even
yeah.
once again, there's a lot of
Even I think,
Scandinavian people, a lot of Swedish people. You'll see
yeah,
those.
they live up in like basically like the New England area, or basically in like New Jersey, and like some parts of Pennsylvania as well.
I don't hang out with people like that, Amy. I don't know who you're talking about. Most of the people I know who say death to America want to build something
Yeah.
new, better. They don't want to harm the people. They just want to build something new and better. They have alternatives. They have ideas.
Wait, somebody
Oh,
asked us a question.
Sammy people calling it? No, that's no.
What are
No.
the Sami people?
Sami people are a cultural religious group from um, the northern parts of Scandinavia, uh, in Norway and Sweden and
Sweden?
stuff. Jason, he's one of those people.
Oh,
His cultural religious identity. It's not an ethnicity just as much as Jewishness isn't an ethnicity anymore. There are people who come from those Sami tribes, and that can trace their blood to them back in the day, but it's not an ethnicity any more than Jewishness is an ethnicity. It's a cultural religious identity. It's from a shamanic tradition. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. No, they're not colonized. No, um,
yeah.
they definitely were Christianized though a lot, and luckily you have the Neo Sami who are reviving it. And keeping it together, and it has direct lineage all the way back to the OG stuff because it wasn't that long ago they were practicing it. There's no such thing as fascist socialism. Um,
That makes no sense.
fascism uh, is the last saving grace of capitalism. It's the last dying breath of the ruling class to save what they have in the most extreme.
Oh, I think he's talking about Nos balls.
Nazbols aren't real.
Yeah,
End of story. There was the National Bolsheviks in the 20s and Germany that were wiped out by the Nazis, and then you had one guy who called himself a National Bolshevik in Russia who was just like this
Dugan.
no this
Oh,
conservative guy who in like the 30s 20s and 30s, this conservative guy who supported the Soviet government, just not socialism, and he was fucking executed anyway. And then you had and then you have the National Bolshevik Party that doesn't exist anymore in Russia, that was a group of liberal artists that made a shock party. It was just a shock party. It was an liberal art project, and anyone who takes that seriously is a joke. And then you have internet people who call themselves Nazbols that copy that aesthetic and say edgy shit, but they don't exist in reality, not at all. Um,
the
I
only
mean,
thing.
Nazbols exist. You have reactionaries that say they're for socialism, but those people are as much for socialism as I am for capitalism. It's bullshit.
What are
Yeah,
Nats?
I think she meant Nazbol,
Oh,
National
the
Socialist.
the
So
only time like
if people want to and so Dugan, I know this is talked about a lot. So Dugan is not a fascist. That's what the liberals in the West like to call him. But he's not a comrade either. He's a reactionary piece of shit. Okay, but he's not a fascist for several reasons. One, he believes in a multi-religious, multi-ethnic Russian culture that encompasses like Turkic people and Islam, and he believes these are all building blocks of a greater, wider Eurasian culture. And he wants to use that as like a unity thing. But he's a weird religious guy. He's like an esoteric traditionalist. He's very much a conservative. The only thing of value I believe he has to say is that he recognized he came up with a term that I like, and I don't even think it's a new idea. It's the multipolar world. Okay, cool. So he recognized that the United States is no longer the dominant power in the world. Awesome, thanks, Dugan. A lot of other people said that too. We don't need you. And Duganites are just weird esoteric reactionaries that want a strong state. They're weird. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about no, they're corporatist, Gordison. Let me leave this up for a second. I'm not talking about Nosballs. I'm talking about the origins of Italian fascism and what nationals when they post-capitalism, what are they trying to build? Well, I guess they never really called themselves that. They called themselves syndicalists in Italy, and they were corporatist syndicalists, which is directly tying, the institutions of the state with corporations through corporate syndicates. It's not like trade unions, left-wing syndicalism. It's corporate syndicalism. It's not anti-capitalist. It's just a very, very heavy hand on capitalism, corporatism. Yeah, I understand you emphasize the quotes. Yeah, it's just they that's corporatism. That's what they call for. Not for not. It's called national syndicalism. People like George Sorel and Mussolini and people like that came up with that idea. If you want to learn about that shit, go look at the other Carl, who's very sympathetic to that stuff. I warn you.
We warn you guys.
Well, I warned you, but Carl's not a bad guy. He's he's a Lakota person. He's he always respected my pronouns.
This, that, with the Nazis.
He's just super. And he hates Nazis and he hates racism. He's just super into corporatism and syndicalism, which I'm not about. But
I was gonna say this. This is the other weird thing.
what
Some
they're
people
doing
also.
with these beliefs. I told you, Gordon. They're building a corporate state, tying the corporations and capitalists directly to the state instead of the level of autonomy that liberal democracies do. They're a part of the state through corporate syndicates. These syndicates meet in a syndicate council. This is the highest governing body of the country. The corporations are the state, and the state are the corporations. If that makes sense. Corporatism is shit.
The other thing I was gonna say is this. You know that myth that anti-communists push that that literally the Nazis are socialists or some shit like that.
But why? Why they think it's the best way to organize society? Fascism is not. Fascism is an emotional ideology. It's not based in anything material. Anyway,
Fascism takes like whatever they want and just like co-opts the shit. Like they can't even come up with anything original. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think that it's just classical fascism is corporatism with racism and national chauvinism involved. It's like I said, a last saving grace of capitalism. It's directly integrating the corporations into the state and the state into the corporations. Into this symbiotic relationship. It's the last saving grace of capitalism. And they'll say whatever they want to justify what they do. And the Nazis did it in a different form. It's a much more brutal and much more private, separate. The corporations were much more separate from the state. Yeah, come on, Antonio.
Yeah, you can join.
Antonio's a Polish communist. She's cool.
Yay, another Polish comrade. Oh wait, let me see something.
Hey, Romero. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Everyone go check out
James is also
to 1K himself. Let's get him there. He's
an amazing not gonna lie. Guess who's your I wanted to say this. Guess who's your 1,000 subscriber?
That's right, Dust.
That's
I saw that. I saw that, Falcone. Hey, Dust. Yeah, that's right. Fascism is always materially destructive. Absolutely, it's a horrible ideology. And greetings. And he says hi. Hey, Tonio. I love your profile pic as usual. Is that what you look like in real life?
Yeah. I
Is
would like to.
that
I need to
Oh, hey,
cosplay him
comrade.
one day. Hi.
what's going on in Poland? I saw Comrade Michael from Poland released a video about a giant Jesus statue, and it was very funny. Um,
In Poland we have a lot of protests against this, like it's Minister of Education. Uh, his last name is Czarnek, and like he is very, very, very right wing. He's extreme. People are accusing him of having blood on his hands, and he also does stupid shit like he wants economy and sex education to be taught by reading books written by John Paul II.
Uh,
But- and so we've been on a Catholic Church hate train lately because of
Yeah.
recent revelations of what's going on in Canada, and we've just been going hard. We'll talk about that. I'll let Falcone talk about that in a little bit more detail. She is the authority on Indigenous things here.
also,
But
check
I just
Ricky
want
B
to
in the
say
chat.
that I just want to say that
John Paul
Poland,
II statue in Canada. I think they poured paint over it, like red paint.
Next, should just like destroy it. Like that's
let
what
me
I
tell you
think.
one thing. If you want to see something that is a close second to the fuckery of American politics, go check out Poland sometime. That shit is fucking wild.
Oh, so
Yeah,
I was
I
gonna say this.
recently seen a comment that some states in United States are as bad as Poland.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
I was gonna.
So Gordonson says, I hear fascists are best described as liberal or anti-liberal. And then the other Carl, hey, the other Carl, we were just talking about you. Compared
Yeah.
to Marxism, Leninism is somewhat liberal in spite of its writers having anti-liberal views. He's right, because the ideology of capitalism is liberalism, and fascism is, a capitalist system. And so it's directly tied to liberalism, whether or not their social views are liberal or not. That's a different story. But and Specky V was it? When will Voss return to Poland to lead his people in the glorious anti-tank
Wait,
movement?
wait, Vosz is Polish?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Potentially. Jesus
Oh, God.
Christ! Why don't they just put him to the wall already? Like, dude, I can't stand this fucker.
He would
For
be a
one more
great member
second.
of the
He
Civic
will. He
Party.
needs to return to Poland. He will feel like it's heaven for him.
He would be too right wing for Razem. He'd have to join
No,
the
he would
Civic Party.
join the Spring Party because Spring Party is like capitalists who are gay and they think that they are gay, therefore they are cool.
Well,
And
I mean, that's
there was
not
this
really how it works. I've met plenty of
kind of
terrible guys.
Razem is no more because I think last year Razem and the Spring Party fused into one party called the Union of Democratic Left.
Oh, if you ever see Democratic Left, that's just code for the capitalist left. Union of Capitalist Left. Oh,
They also call themselves the New Left.
oh gosh, they wish they were as radical as the New Left.
Oh yeah. Wait, let me check something. They brought down the Queen Elizabeth statue too.
Yeah, let's talk
They
about that.
they
Why are people
abolished the
taking
monarchy.
dumps? Why are people taking dumps on Why are people fucking up everything Canadian and everything Catholic up in Canada right now? Why is that going on, Falco?
Oh, residential schools and they're part of the indigenous genocide in Canada. Literally the Catholic Church's involvement in all those residential schools by literally taking away our basically taking away our culture, beating, raping children, even killing them, burying them in mass graves as well. Also, I would say this: death to Canada, fuck Canada, death to Canada, death to Canada. That's what I say. Death to Canada entirely. Burn. Also, I'm gonna say this: let those Catholic churches burn. I hope they burn all the way to the fucking ground. Let them all fucking burn. Burn them fucking all. I hope the indigenous people just burn all
If
of
that's
them.
what the indigenous people want to do, then they have the right to rebel. Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind that they have the right to do that. White people, you fucking keep your hands out of that. Don't get indigenous people in trouble trying to be fucking heroes. Let them take care of it.
I hope the next thing they do is that they burn down Parliament Hill. I hope they do that next. Burn Parliament Hill down. I'm gonna get banned from Canada for this, but
Gentiles actualism is something that is interesting. I guess. Goyim. Although no one's except for New Ruin. Oh, I've seen that fucking guy. At least most MLs know their own ideology. I do know my ideology, actually.
oh yeah, I should make a video why Mormons are not your friends. Because literally this is what happened. In my county, literally, these fucking Mormons literally supported people who literally forced children to have sex with them and shit like that and rape them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I believe that. I'll
I'll
say
take it
this.
to Mormonism.
I'll say
And
this
also,
once, and I'll say it again. That missionary work, whether it's Mormon or other evangelical stripes, that's colonization. That's an attempt at cultural genocide. You stay the fuck out of their communities. You stay at home and leave people the fuck alone. Anyway, dismantle national oppression. Absolutely, absolutely. Liberation theology is based and good. That's actually a Gentile thing I very much like. It's used all throughout Latin America. Almost every communist group in Latin America, outside of well, not really the Gonzaloists. Well, maybe the modern ones. I don't know what they think, but
I don't know. The Communist Party of Peru has not even made I haven't found any statement from the Communist Party of Peru or the LCP or the Communist Party of Chile Red Faction or Red Sun, or even from the Communist Party of Colombia Red Fraction on their stance on religion.
Yeah, I think they're pretty open on it. Because to give a little bit of history of how liberation theology has been used directly in Latin America, in Nicaragua, specific. Yeah, long live the Sandinistas. I was just about to talk about that. Y'all should go check out Ramiro's documentary. Yeah, and the ELN in Colombia has priests of liberation theology. Yeah, and the Sandinistas. So it started off with like grassroots priests in Latin America, coming to the conclusion that the Catholic Church as an institution was like this oppressive colonialist entity, like assimilationist entity, and that the ideas of of a true just God and a just Savior should revolve around liberating humanity from all evil and oppression. That's like evil and oppression is like that's the influence of the devil, in the world and sin. And they want to remove that. And that's sort of they're motivated by religion. And the Catholic Church blackballed these people, excommunicated them, cut off all their funding. They kept doing what they did. Many of them were assassinated. Even a bishop in Nicaragua, that's a high position in the church. Just you have bishops, archbishops, cardinals, and then the Pope. So that's a pretty high position. And he even supported this stuff.
I hate Pope Francis because of his involvement with the Catholic Church in Argentina, where they literally like let pedophiles get away and let them
Yeah,
move around to another Catholic churches.
yeah. There's a huge problem with pedophilia within the Catholic Church, not just colonization and genocide. San Ramiro influenced me on liberation through theology. Yes, yeah. If anyone wants to check it out, build the Zapata Sandino Economic Corridor. Oh hell yeah! The imagine like the indigenous peoples of southern Mexico, from like
Basically, the
Chiapas
Mayan people.
all the way down to Panama, just fucking building a like an economic corridor based on like the needs of those people, socialism and national
I
liberation. That
got
would be so dope.
I got a good name for it. Basically, call it the Latin American Red Corridor.
Yeah, that would be dope.
Okay, let me read this
The
comment.
Jesuits in colonial Brazil were the only ones who argued for leaving Native Americans alone, which is strange given they worked directly for the church, which is aggressive colonization. Yeah, the Jesuits at first were like and that's what Francis was, a Jesuit. So that's why people thought maybe he would be a good guy, but turns out he wasn't. Um,
I
but
hate it when
Jesuits were people who did work directly with alleviating poverty, bringing medical care in the most vulnerable communities, and evangelizing to Christianity, of course. And these
um
liberation theologists, most of them came from that Jesuit background, who really liked helping the people and wanted to free them, but they weren't down with the evangelizing part. You know, they just wanted to help people because that's the right thing to do as a Christian, not also try to convert them. And so that's sort of where this stuff, found its foundations. A lot of these people saw the dialectics of Marx and they were like, wow, I can incorporate this with my faith and find something revolutionary. Which is why
I
I
was
was always stress to people that religion will take on the class character, of its source. Where does
um
liberation theology come from? Well, it comes from the working class, and the
can I
peasant.
can I
Go ahead.
say something about Brazil? So
Yeah.
I saw a tweet from Redfish, which is like a news organization that's also
They're good
that
news if y'all want to check out some
yeah.
news.
They said this indigenous Brazilians of different ethnicities and tribes are mobilizing against the far right Bolsonaro regime in attempt to encourage and its attempts to encourage illegal invasions of indigenous land grabs, deforestation, violence against indigenous people. And
So have
also
you
the
heard
other
of the
thing,
national
um,
national
oh,
it's the national
I,
jobless workers movement, which has been a big part of this social movement with the indigenous people. And these are all these people who can't find work and are
um,
homeless, like the lumpen of Brazil. And there's
um,
millions. And you always see their fucking flag at every fucking place where they're throwing down.
um,
Those are cool
I was
people.
gonna,
There's some rad comrades down there in Brazil.
I,
Solidarity.
I was gonna say that also literally I see this that membership with the LCP, which is like the Maoist party in Brazil, growing with indigenous people, where indigenous people
Well,
are joining their ranks. There was one time where the fascist Bolsonaro regime tried to do like a whole massacre in like a peasant village of indigenous people, and with like armed members of the LCP. And you know what happened? The LCP and the indigenous people won against the fascist state.
hell yeah, I saw his assault on the Amazon that had been going on with the logging and the fires and all that shit. Sure, that had something to do with it. Why he's been fucking with indigenous people so hard,
I can
extracting everything, destroying their land. Also, it's the homeless workers movement. Yeah, look that up, Falcon. I think you would really find that interesting. It's
okay.
lumpenized workers almost. Homeless. They're
Uh,
so rad. They're so rad, and they're so big. There's so many, which is sad.
can can I also say something? I think Brazil might be a future candidate for People's War.
I mean,
Soon it'll come.
it would be ideal for any sort of any sort of asymmetrical warfare for sure because the Amazon rainforest. But
As well, as well as the other thing to mention is this, like I was talking to some of my Brazilian friends. One is in Brazil, the other one is like currently living in New Jersey but has citizenship to Brazil. They didn't really have any hope for the election that's gonna happen at all. Like they say like Lula's okay. They don't like Lula because they say this like Lula was actually trying to do something which like did some changes here and there, but they just like
yeah,
see
so
less
this is a
pragmatic.
general consensus amongst the left, like the far, like communist, I should say, in Brazil, is that yes, they're going to support Lula in this. You know, it's a statement against the
They
soft coup, and to get Bolsonaro out, who is objectively a fascist and who's destroying everything. And
they said
what he will do is like he's a social democrat, but he's going to limit foreign influence, and the biggest thing in
um
neoliberalism,
I was
and
gonna
and stop this rape of the environment.
I was gonna finish my statement with they said that he's like some pragmatist and stuff like that. They
I
said this,
agree.
they're gonna break the election maybe, or just like basically
Ooh.
do like the whole other thing where they're just gonna imprison Lula, but they don't really see any hope with the election. And
Well,
like some of them,
oh, go ahead.
and some of them, I think they're starting to become supportive of the LCP. One of them's in my Black Panther study group, and the other one is in my org.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
let me just say one thing is that of course these people have a right to rebel. But when it comes to Lula, right? I have a lot of comrades in Brazil too. Most of them who I talk to a lot. Most of them are in. Tonio knows one. Um, Carlos. They're in the uh, PCB, and they're gonna vote for Lula. You know, they have no great hopes either. They feel very similar to, to how your Maoist friends feel. He's a pragmatist. He's going to stop the really,
The
really
thing is
bad shit.
this.
But
Uh,
this is just a means to get Bolsonaro out. You know. Oh, here's a Brazilian.
oh wait,
Just
let me
listen.
do
Lula,
something.
much like Maduro and Morales, comes from a generation traumatized by the military dictatorship. True, meaning they opposed radicalism out of principle and fear from military intervention. Also true. So they hate the fucking right wingers, but also they have a fear for the communists too, because they know what happened back then. You know that many of them were fighters inside these armies. So it's interesting to see their perspective. I don't know. I just hope. I think the first and foremost goal is just make sure Bolsonaro gets out. As soon as Lula was cleared for the election, he shot up way past Bolsonaro in the polls. He's a clear favorite. So if they rig it, that's going to be fucked. And if they rig the election, that's grounds for people's war in my mind. But
Oh, so any
join the
Brazilian
third
comrades watching?
protest in Brazil. Okay, do that if you're
Yeah,
Brazilian. Oh,
yeah, and
even
also
Lula
the
was
other
too much
thing is this.
imperialist. That's so true. That's so true because even these social democrats who have an aversion to the American empire, like Maduro, Evo Morales, Rafael Correa, Lula, even they try to get cooed by the United States, and they're successful sometimes, and sometimes they fail. But it's too much. There's imperialists have no soul. I swear. Kind of random. 90% of light in BC was on fire. What? Damn.
Based.
Damn. That's wild.
That's
I hope
base.
I hope no one who's innocent was hurt. Property I could give a fuck about.
Yeah, we hate landlord
Property means
here.
nothing. Property means nothing when it comes to fighting for human lives. It means nothing.
Oh my god, I remember I saw this meme where it's like talking about like landlords, and this guy was like, Mao, where are you?
Yeah, yeah. actually, Lula's party is allied with a communist party that split from the main one called the PCdoB. Yeah, that's the one that has seats inside uh, Congress and stuff. They were
Oh,
like they weren't
it,
Maoists. They weren't Maoists, to be clear. They were a Mao Zedong thought party.
I was gonna
But
say,
yeah,
this. I think, aren't you talking about the BCP?
no,
Uh,
that's the BC. The BCP is not that one. The BCP is
oh,
the one is the party I support. The one my comrades are from. This one was a Mao Zedong thought party that turned to reformism.
oh, it
Um,
reminds me of that one thing I learned from like the Netherlands, where I learned this that there was this one time this guy joined a party that used to be a Maoist party in the Netherlands and turned into a social democrat party.
yeah, it's the
That's a
socialist.
crazy shit.
It's called the
That's a
socialist.
crazy. That's like a crazy shift, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's because a lot of these in Europe specifically, not really in the rest of the world, but in Europe specifically, a lot of these Mao Zedong thought and Hojist parties were psyops. There's one in the Netherlands called Red Dawn that was literally the Dutch intelligence
Secret
service.
police.
They were a Mao Zedong thought, and then later Hojist party. It's just something they did to try to divide the movement, based on genuine frustration within it. It's just a typical psyop.
Also, Hojis are such dogmatists. I can't stand Hojis.
Their general secretary is super gorgeous. I really, I have a lot of issues with Hojis myself. The only Hojis I'm ever sympathetic to are the ones in Albania, just because I understand that the ones then are just want to have that socialist system back, as dogmatic as it was a socialist system.
I
And
remember. I remember this happened in Bangladesh because of Hojis. The PBSP, which is the Mouse Party in Bangladesh, had a split after basically Emperor Hoja basically started calling Mao a revisionist, said Mao Zedong thought is revisionism and shit like that. It
you
basically
don't want
like
to
split
read. You don't
off
want.
because
They
that
don't want to
faction
read what
agreed.
Hoja has to. Yo, you all don't want to read what Hoja has to say about Mao. It's
What
just
were you
late. It's
saying?
emotional. You don't want to hear what Hoja has to say about Mao. It's pure racism. It's disgusting. Brazil has a hostess party that is basically
Hoja is
Antifa
just
on steroids. Well, that's cool. At least they go out and fuck people, fuck up fascists. That's dope. you know that. You know that.
I'm
Oh,
intrigued
you know
by
who Antifa needs to go
Antifa on
after?
steroids.
Antifa on
Sounds
steroids.
interesting. Also,
I will.
I've just found out there are some actions in Poland, some protests about Canada. Uh,
Oh,
it's Poland, so it's mostly on John Paul II. Like
that's land.
there are posters, banners are being changed, and I've just seen a banner that says "Discover 10 words that will change your life," and someone ripped the half of the banner and says these words: "I protected um, pedophilic priests, uh, rapists, uh, murderers of thousands children in Canada."
Solidarity. That's rad as hell. And for those who don't know, Poland is plagued by Catholic reactionaries and Catholic fascists. And so, like, these people to go out and do shit like that, they're risking their safety, seriously, and arrest. Also, the Hojis, the Antifa on steroids mostly fight landlords. That's based. That's the most based Hojis I've ever heard in my life. War against the
So
landlords. Yeah.
basically,
No justice, no peace.
so
Landlords are parasites.
basically, so I was gonna say this. So basically, they're just doing an agrarian revolution. That's also an aspect that not a lot of people talk about. Like only a few times I hear about it. Which some of the times I hear it from some of the leaders of like parties that are waging like people's war, like in the Philippines, where Cecil was asked a question about like the agrarian revolution in the Philippines,
Oh,
and
yeah. Yeah.
also China
I
had a
want to
great.
point. Yeah, I want to point out that um, all these successful mass scale revolutions had one thing in common, and it was land reform, whether it was for peasants or farm workers or campesinos, whatever conditions they were under. Um, what was the slogan of the Bolsheviks? How did they win? It was peace, land, and bread. Peace from World War One, land reform for the peasants, bread, food for the people. Simple. That's how they won mass support. And um, and then you have and then you have the Chinese. How did they win the support of the hundreds of millions of Chinese peasants to win the war? Because Mao said we can't be dogmatic. We have to, promise these peasants things that aren't specifically Marxist, but are, their agrarian reforms or revolution, whatever you want to call it. It's really a revolution. And, they had the collectivization in these places, and giving these rural workers agency, turning peasants into farm workers, proletarianizing them, raising their living conditions. And anytime a lukewarm social democrat in the global south decides to do land reform, the West has always tried to stop them, especially in Central America with the banana wars and stuff, because many countries, like Arbenz in Guatemala, Arbenz was a social democrat, not radical at all. And he wanted to do not even extreme, but a distribution of land reform. And that was one of the first coups in the Cold War era that was carried out by Eisenhower in the White House, against him. That brought in a military junta. And land reform is essential because in most of the global south, many of these campesinos, farm workers, and even peasants are still living under these conditions, and we still have to address it. And, if we want to rationally organize our food production, we have to do land reform because the way it's organized now is leading to nothing but production being wasted. We have massive capacity as humanity to produce more than any other period, and we could meet everyone's needs and live in a post-scarce society. But that would be only if we had a rationally planned socialist economy. Unfortunately, we live under the irrationality of capitalist production. So land reform is a step in the right direction, becoming not only self-sufficient for many of these places, but also moving past food scarcity with rational planning. And there's when it comes to these residential houses in Canada, this is something that was done in America too. And there's more that we don't know about. There's thousands, probably tens of thousands more children that are buried that we don't know about, sick. We could have central planning, but all the supercomputers are being used by BreadTube to play Minecraft. Specky always has the best shit posts. Yeah, supercomputers could certainly plan our economy, and I think that that's something that's being done in a lot of places that do have planned economies. I know China uses computers for their 5-year plans, supercomputers. I think it's something that is just rational, If you're going to plan something, why not have something that can think beyond the human mind when it comes to things like numbers and economics? Those damn bread tubers using up all the dedicated wham for the Minecraft servers. Ever heard of Big Computer Gang? No, I haven't. What is Big Computer Gang?
Speaking of the computers, it reminded me of fully automated luxury gay space communism.
Yeah, I mean that's
And
what.
yeah, that's the future if people stop using supercomputers to play Minecraft.
Yeah, I mean that's the future we can have if y'all stop putting so much dedicated wham on your Minecraft server. Okay,
And Among Us.
and Among Us. Put it on YouTube. I'll check it out definitely. So we're gonna end the stream here. Thank you everyone who came and watched. Thanks everyone who has subscribed recently. It means a lot to reach that 1K. Thank you, Tonio. Thank you, Falcone, for coming on once again. Everyone go check out Falcone, the Falcone General's channel. She's a Maoist with Maoist things like updating People's Wars, podcasts, all sorts of cool stuff, indigenous perspectives. Go
Oh,
check her out. And
oh,
Tonio
and
is
also,
um,
oh, oh, I was gonna say this. Also, don't forget to go check out my new video that's gonna come out on July 4th, which is gonna be the Battle of Bighorn. But that's all I
awesome.
have to say.
We're definitely gonna look at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this later, please like and subscribe. It's very appreciative. Um, Comment down below with your thoughts. I love to interact with y'all. And if you have any ideas or you want to talk shit, just type down below.
Mhm.
Solidarity forever. Shabbat shalom. I will see y'all next week. Bye bye.
Thanks.